So I just finished the book, The Making of the African Queen, or How I Went to Africa with Bogart, Bacall and Huston, and Almost Lost My Mind by Katharine Hepburn. And now I would like to give my opinion on it. First of all, this is a very slim book, 100, almost not even 130 pages, so a fast reader can get through it in one sitting. It took me a little longer. um, but it's really not. It's really not. It's really a slight book. It has a lot of pictures, so that those 130 pages, half of those pages are pictures. If you've ever seen an interview with Katharine Hepburn, you will have a pretty good idea of how this book was written. It's very much the way she talked, very conversational style. And she's quite, when she gives interviews, she talks a lot with her hands, and there's a lot of gesticulation there, which of course is missing here. So interviews with her are kind of more interesting because because you can see her, and so that style gives the book a spontaneity. It makes it very unpretentious. It seems very it gives it a sort of there's a certain freshness, but it's also not super cohesive. This isn't a well-structured piece of writing. Not that I really expected that anyway, but she can be quite erratic. She jumps around a lot, and again, in an interview setting, that's kind of part of her appeal. But in written form, it's a little harder to follow, is what I'm trying to say, especially for me, because I'm not somebody who likes I have a pretty nervous brain as it is, and when somebody has a nervous writing style, then I get even more nervous. So I like calmness. So I definitely prefer her in interviews. She's one of my favorite people to listen to. She has a very very interesting opinions and very unconventional point of view. And of course, she was quite quirky, and all of that is there too. You really get a good idea of her personality in this book. There's no doubt about that. But as far as her being a great storyteller, I'm not sure. it just seems to me that she's. I think, I do think that Katharine Hepburn was probably a little bit self-centered, and I don't mean it like as a criticism. I think she was, she's one of my favorite actors, and I think she was very interesting, but I do feel she was quite concerned with herself, and I kind of feel that to be a great storyteller, you kind of have to be more interested in other people. And I think, and this is kind of what came through in this book too, that she writes a lot about her own. She seems to write a lot from her own what she sees. She writes a lot about locations, places, the landscape, the people. I mean, the natives. She writes about the weather a lot. She writes about toilets and not having toilets and excrements, and it's all very funny and hilarious. But it is kind of centered around her. She talks about the weather a lot and how much she enjoyed the rains and all that. But there is, for me, definite lack of her telling stories about the other people there, especially Bogart and Bacall. So she writes How I Went to Africa with Bogart, Bacall, and Huston. There really isn't. There's virtually almost nothing on Bacall, except in the beginning she writes, how beautiful she was, and she took care of the cooking, getting food to the crew and stuff, and that is it on Bacall. When Bogart is mentioned in the beginning and in the end. Favorably, both of them. I mean, they became very close friends on that set, but you don't get a feeling for that at all. That's just something I know from other sources. The only person she really writes about is Huston. But even there, it seems that she, I'm going to be a bit of an armchair psychologist right now, but I do have the feeling that Katharine Hepburn, that's just an impression, might be one of those people who, I don't know if I can express what I mean through properly through, the sort of people who kind of see or judge people only in the way that they are related to themselves, if you know what I mean. So she kind of only mentions these people when they're kind of in relation to herself. And in the beginning, she judges Huston pretty quickly and, is very dismissive of him. Right away, she has a clear opinion on him, and it's not a good one. And then when she has a good moment with him and they spend a special moment together or shared a special moment together, and all of a sudden he's the sweetest and the greatest, and then it switches again when he does something that she doesn't like. He's an irresponsible child again, and then always kind of she doesn't seem to have much of objectivity in when she looks at people, and it seems very much. It seems to me that she only really looks at people as they're relating to her, if that makes any sense. I know what I mean, but I'm not sure I can properly put it into words. But what I'm trying to say is that I feel that what she's lacking to be a great storyteller, at least in written form, is a real grasp on people, I think, or a really interest in really observing people completely outside of herself when they have nothing. Having said that, though, I really like the way she described John Huston, and she really made me curious to read more on him. There's a book I've been wanting to read on him. I think it's called something along the lines of The Art of Courage, I think, but I could be wrong. Anyways, it's a biography on John Huston, and I've been wanting to read it, but it has never really, up to now, it hasn't been like a huge priority to read it. But now, after reading this book, I'm really eager to check it out soon. I just like the way she described him, and I knew that he was quite a character and quite eccentric, but having read, he's like the only one that you really kind of, where you get a feeling for a personality there. So that's definitely lacking for me. I'm somebody, if I have to read passages on landscapes or the view or the weather, I check out pretty quickly when there are no people involved. I'm already not the greatest fan of reading. I only read to gain knowledge. That's my only interest in reading. I don't enjoy the act itself. I'm very I guess I'm generally very goal oriented. I do so many things only to get to the goal, which is annoying. But I am like that. So reading isn't very fun to me. But if it involves people and interesting people, then it's kind of interesting to, it's easy to get through. But like I said, I don't know if I mentioned that already. That is, the style of the book is it's very much written like a diary, So it's she uses a lot of dashes, and the writing style is, like I said before, it's not a cohesive piece. It's kind of like more like notes, and really like a diary. That's how it's kind of like the style. And the problem with that is that it it um it it kind of leaves out important information. You know, if you yourself are writing a diary, for example, you don't give yourself background information, right? You don't give yourself you because you know it, right? So if years or decades later you go over it, you'll remember it. You know, you don't need background info to know what happened there and where you were. You just know it. But as when you're trying to tell a story to somebody, you got to take them into you know, you got to be aware that they're there and that they don't have the background information. I had a little bit of background information because I read the book by Stephen Bogart, Humphrey Bogart's son, who wrote the book In Search of My Father. There he talked, you know, quite in great detail about the shooting of the African Queen and what a complicated, you know, shooting it was, and you know, all the things that went wrong. So I had an idea of what it was like. So that's basically my main motivation to read this book. I thought, oh wow, that seemed like such a, you know, such an interesting, you know, such an interesting film to shoot, and all the things that happened on that set. I want to know more about that. So I thought, wow, when I came across this book by Katharine Hepburn, I thought, wow, I'm going to read this book because she was actually there. You know, I really want to know more. But I did not learn more. I definitely learned more, you know, from Stephen Bogart's book, and he wasn't even on that set, you know. So she doesn't really she just for me didn't really fully succeed in putting the story across. You know, it here says the title, How I Went to Africa, blah blah blah, and almost lost my mind. You don't get a feeling for her losing her mind. You know, they got sick, and there were all kinds of problems with, you know, with the shooting, but you don't really get the feeling of her losing her mind. And again, you know, that's that problem of she was there, she knows she almost lost her mind, but she doesn't really know how to make you feel it. And that's just down to her not being a great writer, I think, is what it is. Um, um, yeah, I think that's what it is. I think actor personalities and writer personalities are quite different people. I think she just doesn't have the writer's personality. But I didn't expect, you know, I didn't expect to read a great book, you know. But I can't say that I got much out of it. The two things I got out of it is, well, the best thing about this book, honestly, are the pictures. There's some really, really, really beautiful photographs in here, really high quality, sharp, beautiful images. Some of them I've never seen before of Bogart, Bacall, and Huston. Just beautiful images, and images of the work itself. When she also almost doesn't talk about the work either. You just know at one point they're on a ship and they're shooting a scene, and then she's back in her hut and covered in ants. She doesn't write about the work either. She really talks about, I don't really know what she talks about, like the weather and getting rid of her, you know, poop and an elephant poop and lots and lots of poop, but almost no talk about Bogart or Bacall or the work, you know. So it's almost like the pictures tell the story better. I really feel that the pictures tell you the story better. I really looked at every picture for a long, long time, and they're so beautiful, and they give you a feeling um, for the shooting of that film and what it was like to be down there at that time, you know, and the complications of shooting a Technicolor movie in '51 on location in Africa and all the stuff that went wrong. You just get a feeling for the work and all the love and care and blood, sweat, and tears that went into making a movie back then. But it's something you kind of get from the pictures or from having read other texts on that, on 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 the making of the African Queen. This book is not going to give you a whole lot of information. I would still, uh, if I don't have a permanent place to live. I'm moving constantly. So I got this. So I don't buy any books. I got this from the library. But if I ever settle down, not if, when I settle down, I would still buy this book, but really only for the pictures. But for the pictures, it's totally worth it. I love great photographs. So of interesting people. So there's really some great pictures of Houston, particularly, and Bogart. Um, for the pictures, I can recommend it. For the text, if you don't know much about Katharine Hepburn and you want to get an idea of her personality, then I would recommend it. She is, she was a quirky dame, and she was interesting, definitely, but it's not. Apart from that, it's all quite on the surface. And I think that made it a bit of a struggle for me. Even though it's such a slim book, I didn't find it very engrossing, I have to say. I was kind of waiting for her point. I was kind of waiting. What's your point? What are you trying to say? I don't know. Yeah. Like I said, I would, I'm not sure I would recommend it apart from for the pictures. But it's not bad or anything. I I just was hoping to get a little bit more out of it. That's basically it.